great to see such a big turnout again. So thanks for joining us. And before I introduce our speaker today, I'll just run through the speakers that we've got lined up for the next few weeks, which is filled out quite nicely now. So next week we have Miles Silman from Wake Forest University in North Carolina in the US, talking about the future of biodiversity in the Andes and Amazon. The week after, last minute edition, we have a certain Yadvinder Mali talking about captured sunshine. What can an energetic view of life on Earth tell us about nature, decline, and recovery? So ecological energetics and what it tells us about ecosystems. The week after, we have Tim Smits from the founder of the Eden Project, which is quite a well-known project in Cornwall, on the transformative art of kissing frogs. And then the week after, we have Edith Hammer from, I think, Lund in Sweden, on soil ecology from the microbial eyes view. So we have a very different a set of talks over the next few weeks. So do come along, and there's further ones later in term as well. Turning to today's speaker, Elena Lazos-Chavero. She's a professor and researcher at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico since 1992, and she's a coordinator of leading authors of the values assessment of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Sciences, or WIPBIS. So she's played a key role in that really important assessment that came out last year. And she has an interesting background of doing an undergraduate degree in biology and then a PhD in social anthropology. So she transcends the biological and social sciences in her work. And she's been a professor at the University of Zurich, the Université La Sorbonne, and the University of Montreal. And she's been here since September, and it's just here until next week, I believe. So it's the last chance to catch up with what she's up to. And after our talk, as usual, if you're new here, we have drinks around the corner. Come and join us for an informal conversation after the seminar as well. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you, and thank you for the invitation. And also, I want to thank Table Debates that they invited me to be here in part of my sabbatical year. Well, this time I organized my talk in these 5 points. No, we will be going into the organic and fair trade products, into the land tenure, but also arable land, degraded land, deforestation, monocultures, and what the constitution of the spaces of capital, to finally go into the food and territorial justice. So my leading questions were these, that it is enough to really be eating organic food or even fair trade products, and these are leading us to really food justice or territorial justice. Or which are the challenges that really could take us to achieve food and territorial justice? So what about organic food? Well, the certifiers, as you know, there has been a big business about the certification of organic food, and now there are certification of the certifiers. And also it is, well, what is organic really about? Now it is called the mega organic, the ultra organic, the super organic, the US organic, because every certifier has their own logic and their own rules to be certifying it. But also it is what not to buy organic, what to buy organic, and really it's so confusing also for the consumer. So, well, at the beginning, yes, it was a counterculture movement, that it was really taking us back to earth, to have a healthy food, and certainly to be cultivating without agrochemicals. After really, the publication of Rachel Carson's book about the Silent Spring, that it's always under the organic production. But what has become about that? We have all the certifications from the 70s, and it's very much complicated. And if it is complicated for us, it is more complicated for small landowners or for indigenous people around the world. So what it should be, it is that organic farmers, they have to stick to the standards, to really what the label established. So they have even to follow like a code of conduct, For example, Nestlé has little like a sequence of what to do and how to do it, not what to do. So there are really strict rules about it. And also what we know it is that there has been a lot of cheating and disagreements of what organic should be or how it should be labeled. And it has been a growing market about it. No? And we know that they call it like the failure in the system, no? As the capital will be naming it. But we know that, that precisely all the corporations are now having a business from the organic production. And even though there was private labeling to Walmart and to Costco, and it was not even labeled by the national certifiers. Even the CAFOs, that is the concentrated animal feeding, the feedlots, what we know them, they were having this labeling about organic beef or organic poultry. When we know that they are this type of feedlots, that they are concentrating a lot of animals without any health and without any human and non-human really well-being. So now there's a lot of new labeling, Regenerative Organic Alliance, the Real Organic Project. Now it is a real one, and so the poor fruits are now have to be labeled as natural, as organic, as non-GMO, etc. But what we have to consider it is that there's a lot of money there, and there are fortunes to be made. Only for the organic market in the US, there were around $21 million only for 1 year, for 2021. And when we see where is this distributed, are really farmers getting a better living out of it or not? And even though the fair trade market is really reducing food injustice, when their principles really were poverty alleviation, they were, of course, environmental conservation, food safety. But what we see more and more, it is that there is no poverty alleviation, even in those places where it is supposed that they are having fair trade agreements with different companies. When they have not their own food safety, and when we see a replacement of their staple food by the cash crops that they are supposed to be handing into the big companies, that they are having the fair trade agreements, that it's supposed to be in education and women's empowerment, but when we see this, they have done really very little on these terms. So in this sense, we are like questioning about, well, what has been the consequences or what are the benefits of this fair trade reducing social or food injustice, And even, the Rainforest Alliance that you know very well, that it is in around more than 60 countries, that they have a very strict certification program, that they are fostering the regenerative agriculture, and now even the climate smart agriculture, whatever that is, And that, of course, what they promote, it is the good news is that Rainforest Alliance knows what needs to be done, and we are doing it, And that is the problem, that they think that they are thinking that they are doing it well. And when we see in the communities, in the local communities, that they are really controlled by the Rainforest Alliance certification program, that they have to be cultivating in this way and not in other way, that they have to go into this cash crop and not the other one. So then the question it is, what is happening in the context? What is happening in the local? And when we buy a fair trade, where we can feel well in the sense of, okay, I'm contributing, but what we have to ask, it's a little bit more. What is about in that region that this product is coming from? So in that sense, we have to, one of the big questions, it is, what's about the land tenure and the land rights? What is happening in the world? And what we see is more and more land grabbing by all types of companies and corporations. not only the ones of monocultures that we know, no, but also the ones that are promising organic products, no, for the global north, the ones that are promising wood that is certified, no, and they are saying they are reforest or they are making plantations. So in that sense, land tenure, we have to think about them in this sense that who holds the land, who has the right to have access to the land for the length of time, and under what conditions. And that is so important to give stability and to give certainty for the farming, but also, of course, for the farmers. And then it is very much related to food production, to food security. If I am very unsure about my land, then of course that takes us to a food insecurity. If really I am very unstable in the land, right, then that gives me more conditions of risk of really not having, not even for subsistence, for having my livelihood really with welfare terms. And of course, also the land tenure, what it's giving us, it is a reflect of the organization of the economy, of how that society is producing, which are the contractual relationships in the rural areas, whose stakeholders are there, and how are they making all their networking. And that also reflects us, of course, the spaces of power. Are they negotiated? Are displacement of people, because of not only the monocultures, but because of the land grabbing or the green grabbing? How about all the conservation areas that has been making the displacement of a lot of indigenous and peasant people? But not only what we have to analyze is the land tenure, but also it is, well, what kind of land are we having access to, in the sense of it is arable, and how is the quality of that arable land? Because then what we see, it is mainly that the monocultures are in the best quality of land in the plains, and the staple products or indigenous people are in very mountainous regions where there are problems of degradation of soils. So then the big question is then who and how is this arable distributed? Who has the access to this land? And to understand all the institutional arrangements that have been ruled in that context, in that country, to understand how then arable land is distributed. In the world, we could see that they give us this percentage of of this result of 0.19 hectares per person, but we know that it can be from 0.04 to 1,000 hectares, because there are a concentration of arable good lands in very few hands, and what we have, it is all the other, the mountainous lands that they are very much scarce and very much distributed in the population. So then what we have to talk it is to understand why and how has happened the degradation of the soil of the land. Who has been provoking it? Because many times it is, we say, oh, no, there are the smallholders that as they are very intensively working their land. Is that so? Or it has been more in the hands of these monocultures corporations, that they have been fostering the monoculture, impulsing the monoculture, and using a lot of agrochemicals. And then afterwards, as they were leasing this land, they go out, and then afterwards, it's a return to the peasants or to the indigenous people. But this has been already with a high grade of degradation. So what we also see in this map, about not only how it is distributed, the degraded land, it is these geographies of power, in the sense of how it is decided, or why some countries are more degraded and in which parts they are more degraded. And when we come with deforestation, it will be in the sense, the same sense. We have to understand, well, the environmental institutions that come into the agreement or the negotiation of forest conservation or forest deforestation. We have to disentangle all the arrangements of power relationships to really understand why, in which periods have been high deforestation rates and in which other periods there are less deforestation rates. So we understand these pressures, and in which moments there is more pressure than in other ones. And also to understand that many times, when we see one of the maps of how it is recovering the forest in US, for example, that it's in the very green in this map, that we have very like dark, deep dark green. And well, there are reforests, in the US, for example. Yeah, but then why they are importing so much wood from Mexico, And why are they importing so much wood from Central America or from Guatemala, without any certification? So then it is the big contradictions there, And then also, again, we have to understanding as geographies of power, Who is deciding? And it is a geopolitical issue to understand why, how the deforestation rates are more important in some countries than in other ones. And to understand that why in the US or in some parts of Europe, there are reforests, but they are sending their timber companies to other parts of the world, and they are living from that non-certified timber that is coming from the global south. So when we are talking about the Amazons, that everybody is really very much worried about the Amazon, and you will have a talk about the Amazon, so I'm not daring to talk very much about it. But what we see, there are a lot of contradictions among the stakeholders. And now, with Lula, that was, he recognized that he will be recognizing the titles of the indigenous people. That has been a big gain. But now it is how are they going to make it? And because they were not really titles about all this land. So it will be a very complicated way, even though that politically it's a gain. It is something that is important, and it is like a triumph, and many of the indigenous people in the Amazon are happy about it. But now it is the how and the why. The how. So in that sense, what we also see, it is, well, the land grabbing in the sense of the monocultures, that they have been going to the global south. And also here you have it, with big high yield, looking only high yields with big soil degradation, with looking low input prices, that also it's favoring the big agricultural corporations, that more and more it is the use of agrochemicals. We were promised with the GMOs that the pesticides will be, or the herbicides will be reducing. What we saw now, it is they are increasing even, and the GMOs have not solved the problem about the pest resistance. It's on the contrary, there is more pest resistance. And what it's very important for, in this case, it is the replacement of staple crops by the commodity products. So what is happening in many of these countries, that we are producing for exportation, and we are importing our food, and that is what is happening in Mexico with maize, in the sense of, well, we were the big producers of maize once, and nowadays, because of the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, there were a lot of unfortunate price and marketing relations, power relations, that took us really to make the importation of maize, because it's cheaper to produce it in the US than in Mexico, because it's not considering the cost of production. They are considering other things, and of course they are massively producing it. So then what we see, it is all these NAFTA or those trade-free agreements, what we are suffering from that, it is all the commodity products that are being imposed in those lands. So what it is for many of the geographers, and Harvey especially, it is understanding these different patches, no, that it's producing the capital, no? So what we have to understand is all these rules of the capital accumulation in order to understand our history and why our geography looks like it looks, no? And how this capital accumulation is producing also very big differences. It's not producing an homogeneity, it's producing a big heterogeneity in the sense of rules, in the sense of different ways of acquiring control of the process, of the food process, of the agricultural process, and also, no, producing these niche markets, no, these new markets that we could say new places to colonize, and the organic, no, the agro ecological, and now the regenerative agriculture, that it's colonizing, no, all these new patches. And it's always, no, looking, of course, the growth and not matter the environmental or the social consequences. So, well, about the last slide, no, even no, in this, the left, we see cattle raising in Veracruz, in the south of Mexico, no? So how it is determined the patchwork of rainforest or of the spread out of the cattle raising? And this will be very, very much similar to all tropical Latin America, no? Colombia, past that history also, Brazil, in the sense of that cattle raising was the mean of land grabbing. No, it is the status that gives me the control of land. So more cows I have, more spreading of the on the land, over the land I have. And when we see all the patchworks, no, and we see, for example, the mountain that it's behind the ranch of this person, we see, no, that even, no, in the high mountains, the rainforest has been fell down. So what we have to really understand it is, yeah, how this capital, no, accumulation goes after, and it's eating, no, the forest. No, there is a very nice book, no, there's by a French anthropologist, that it's on a mangé la forêt, no, and it's true, no, it's we have been eating and eating the rainforest, no, because of these land grabbing of cattle and of land. And in the other side, what we have, it is the agroforestry systems, no, and with the coffee plantations. And even there, what Harvey will be saying, it is also there, it's the capital, no? Because they are controlled by the market, they are controlled by the prices, even, no, they are controlled by the fair trade that arrives there, no, as Rainforest Alliance that are working with many coffee producers in Mexico, but that they have to follow, no, their orders, their control, and they are substituting the maize by the coffee plantations. And then afterwards, I will come to what it's doing Nestlé, but well. So all these decisions made over the territory gives us, no, these, that we have to understand in how is the flow of power, no, how it is circulating the power, who is who in that moment, and it's changing, it's very dynamic. We have to understand that these relations are very dynamic, that many times they are expressed by domination, but at the same time, it can be expressed by persuasion, and sometimes they can be negotiated. So it is not one way of going, no, but always it is in all the ways, no, that the capital will be entering and will be controlling the territories. And of course, the stakeholders, no, there are many, no, I only stated some of the global institutions, even World Fund, no, for example, or big transnationals or corporations as the coffee, as Nestlé, for example, that it's in very much in Veracruz in Mexico, the big bingos, no, the NGOs, but also, of course, the farmers, and there is also heterogeneity of farmers. There are big farmers, they are small farmers, there are farmers that are having a stability with their land tenure, but there are other ones that no, they always are renting or leasing, no. So then what we have to understand is all this patchwork and how do they communicate or how do they negotiate over their territory? And well, as you have imagined, I'm using all the Foucault and Deleuze ways of understanding a power, and understanding this spreading of power in the spaces of capital. So then what we have to understand it is that this causes a lot of vulnerabilities in the local regions. These vulnerabilities are expressed in socio-environmental vulnerabilities as well as political vulnerabilities, and where people are really pressured by taking or by making decisions. First, what we said about the recognition or not of their land rights, and this makes a very unstable or a very uncertain panorama. So how people is solving, or they are solving their problems with the agrarian structure, and this creates a lot of non-possibilities or possibilities of producing their own food, producing their food for consumption, when they know that it is even more expensive sometimes to produce them themselves than to go to the store and buy it. But that brings a lot of food insecurity. And of course that they are dependent on the cash crops to make their income or to make their subsistence. Then this play between the cash crops, the staple crops, the forest conservation, they are always pressed or under this pressure. And it is not easy to solve it when you are in the subsistence line. We will be like, well, if they were big landowners that they could subsist and they could move from place to place, that would be different. But when you are a small landholder and you are with so much pressure, then of course you have to decide in the immediate. You cannot be like saying, oh, in my future, in 20 years, I will be doing this and that. No, they have to be solving day by day, year per year, their own subsistence. So also, this is very much to consider in this sustainable or not sustainable livelihoods, and how do they balance their capacities and their assets to really meet their daily food production. And of course, also there are a lot of gender imbalances that also we have to deal with. And many times when we are working with small landowners or with small farmers, what we are trying always is to incorporate women in the discussions. But there's a long history of gender displacement in the sense of gender margination. So it is not easy to really make it through all these cultural vulnerabilities, where always men have been deciding not only for the family, but for the land. And many times in Mexico, as in all Latin America, there were first men that they were migrating mainly to the US. And when they were returning, perhaps with a new family, then the local family was displaced. So then you have a lot of social and cultural problems about inheritance. It's women that stayed there, that they were working for 10 years, perhaps, those land, and when the husband is returned, or the ex-husband will be returning, then what will be happening with those lands? So then there are a lot of problems and very contradictions, and this is very much in this gender imbalance process. So what we see also, it is these vulnerabilities that are accumulated in the history. What we have, it is what we call it recursive crisis, in the sense of when there is a recovery, perhaps, of the family or of even the community, in the sense of recovery in the cash crops, perhaps it was fine with a coffee, for example, but then afterwards it happened something, a drought, or a flood, or COVID, for example, it was very important and very decisive in many of the local populations, and then they bring it back. It is always with this image of Solikon, in the sense of I am hiking the mountain and something happens, I fell down and I go back again. It's in the sense that small farmers are always in this recursive crisis, and with all these vulnerabilities, then it's very difficult for them to really overcome in the long term the structural dimensions of all vulnerabilities. So when we are trying to understand why peasants are producing like that, or why they are deforesting, or why not, or why they are choosing to go in that way or not in the other way, we have to understand these historical decisions, these historical and institutional factors that are taking me into recreating these inequities and these inequalities. And of course, here I'm using the terms of Amartya Sen about vulnerability, about social equality, and thinking that it is this accumulation of vulnerabilities and of inequities that makes it very difficult for small landowners to overcome crisis as a price shoot, or something that's happened with the prices, or something that happened with the market. For example, with COVID, some of the markets were closed, and only this fact took again a recursive crisis that led to the peasants a very much vulnerable situation. So what we see now, for example, what is happening in Veracruz and in many regions in Chiapas also of Mexico, it is that the shaded coffee that is produced under agroforestry systems, they have the problem with the ROI, and it is not so clear, although there are some experiments that the ROI, it grows more under the shaded coffee than the sun-exposed coffee, But that has been unclear. But what it is happening now, it is that Nestlé is obliging the producers, the coffee growers, into the coffee plantations with no shade. And now what we are having, it is this landscape. If before we have it like in agroforestry with a high biodiversity, and a lot of bird biodiversity, what we have now, it is, well, the clearing of all the trees, and this is what Nestlé is obliging in order to buy their organic coffee. So even though it is an organic coffee, and we could buy it as a fair trade product, what we see then, it is all these pressures that are behind, and this is because of the power structure and because of their vulnerabilities, their accumulated vulnerabilities, that of course the peasants are obliged then to go into the non-shaded coffee plantations. But also, when we see the cattle distribution, one of the biggest feedlots in Mexico is Su Carne. It's a Mexican big feedlot that started in Sinaloa, that it's in the northwest of Mexico. And what we have there, it is they started with cattle production, and more they are controlling all the market. They are controlling more or less like 70% of the beef market. So they are exporting it mainly to the US. It's 65% of the exportations are to the US, but also to China, to Japan, to Middle East, etc. But what it is behind there, it is that they are buying very young cattle, and so all the feeding, all the fattening will be in the feedlots. So now, for example, that I am in a project about cattle raising, if it is sustainable or not, I am very doubtful. But well, what we are trying to do it is agro-silvopastoral systems in Veracruz. And what it is important to know it is that, well, afterwards, the destiny of these young cattle, we don't know. Even though it's supposedly that there is a traceability, well, the traceability will be that they are in a feedlot, and then afterwards, no, it will be exported perhaps to the US or to China, and where even that it was produced as no environmentally friendly, we really lose a trace of that, of a traceability, no? So then what we see then, it is also that sucarne has been growing a lot, no? And it is surprisingly a lot, no? I can tell you. So in that sense, what we discover, it is there is a lot of illegal cattle coming from Central America, and all this illegal cattle is controlled by the narco cartels. So when we are supposedly, and then we say, why sucarne? No, all of a sudden they grew really so rapid. And well, there are suppositions that you were, yeah, you can understand which type of suppositions. We are perhaps thinking of how and why sucarne grew so much. No? But then in that sense, what we are saying it is, okay, this commercialization and distribution of cattle, when perhaps we are eating something that is coming, no, a good beef in your plate, well, we don't know really if we are paying to the narcos or not. So when we have cattle raiser, or when we have the tobacco, for example, under the big industry of the tobacco companies, also corporations in Veracruz, or even if we have an agroforestry system, we are recreating vulnerabilities because of how market is imposed, why and how the prices are imposed. No, for example, the bananas, no, that here are so cheap, and I cannot explain myself why are so cheap here in UK. No, so in that sense, why and how the market establishes those prices, and even in our agroforestry systems, and we can buy it as an organic banana. Then what we have to think it is why and how this market and prices are pressuring the small landowners, that perhaps they continue that way, and perhaps the day after they cannot continue it, and I have to sell their land. And then that is what is happening about land grabbing or land leasing, and in that sense it is an accumulation of land in other hands. And also what is happening, and this is particularly in Mexico, but also in Peru. Now I was in Ecuador, also in Colombia, all this food and cultural dispossession. In Mexico, we eat the grasshoppers, and it was since pre-Hispanic times. It has been dated now, and it has been part of the culture to eat grasshoppers in the season of the grasshoppers. You can see here that they are cooking them. They are eating in a family. They are selling it in the market. But then now it has become a very fashionable and very hipster food. So now it is entering the gourmet restaurants, and now the grasshoppers, they are very, very expensive, in the sense that before they were so cheap, and they were like a protein for poor people, and it was always like, oh yes, it's the future for food and for alleviation of poverty. Then now we see that it is becoming more and more expensive. So now it is because of the pizzas that they are making for the hipster public, or for fancy restaurants in Mexico City or in Oaxaca City, and also the pulque, that it was from the agave, it's also now becoming in a very fashionable way. So then, to be coming to the end, what we have, it is when we see these maps of food insecurity, what we have to always think and to relate it is with other aspects. And there is a recent publication about land tenure and the networking of the land tenure. And what we see then it is, okay, there is a relation between land tenure and land use, of course, with deforestation, with indigenous population, and of course, with food insecurity, no? So when we are thinking about what type of production are we having, it is like to relate it always, no, to these land tenure and land rights problems with these vulnerabilities or the accumulation of these vulnerabilities and equalities, and then to understand how are functioning all these relations of power in a territory. But well, I think there is a hope, no? And the hope, it comes when we are always in networking with the people, that we see that there are a lot of interest, no, of communities or of collective action of what we can change, what we can do. And there is always like this discussion of how can we really have a healthy food, no? As you know, Mexico is one of the countries that has problems of obesity. It's the first country with problem of children's obesity. And no, many times it's because of the refreshments and of the Coca-Cola that you might have seen it in the photo of that they are eating the traditional food, but with the Coca-Cola besides. And this, no, it's also the product of all the transnational corporations that were into the food system and that they have controlled the food systems. No? Now, with the new government, we had a lot of discussion about the taxes to the refreshments once again, no? And it is always a negotiation and domination of taxing the refreshments, no? But it will be no the solution to really tax them so much that then people will be not encouraged to drink it and better to drink water, no? But as you know, also in many of the communities, it is cheaper to buy a Coca-Cola than to buy a liter of water, no? And the pollution of water has become such a problem that now you cannot drink it as here, no, of tap water, but then afterwards you fall into these big contradictions between the use or the consumption of refreshments or of water. So in this sense, what we have been working, it's to bridge alliances, between local authorities and perhaps restaurants or with farmers, with indigenous people, and to try to combine to make it at least discuss it in the schools, to discuss it among women or among farmers, and to come to solutions and to come to proposals for the national authorities. So as conclusions, I will say, well, we will have food and territorial injustice when we still have a very uncertain land rights or land tenure, when we have degraded lands and we are not really investing in the recovery of all these degraded lands, that food is seen as a commodity only and not as a way of living, no? And the production in Mexico of the milpa, for example, that it is this corn exists, polyculture, it is a way of living. It was a mode of living, no? And it is not only the food to be consumed. So in that we have this displacement of staple food by cash crops, and how the national governments are also imply, of course, in taking or in moving all these decisions into a monoculture, for example, or accepting that Cargill, Monsanto, Syngenta will be taking over the territories of so many peasants or indigenous people. So in the sense that if local peoples or local communities and indigenous people are not deciding over the territories, well, we will be having this injustice, even if it is a fair trade product or if it's a fair trade crop. What we have to really be working with them is what they want, how to decide, how to open all these possibilities of democratization and making decisions over their own territories. And of course, what we have to build and to really correlate it is the environmental with the agrarian and the food policies. Because if we see them in a separate way, as always, that the food policies comes in one way and the agrarian in another way, and the environmental policies are separated from that, it is the big problem. I think that we have to bring them together and to be really deciding with the local peasants and with the local indigenous populations to be localizing, not really making homogeneous policies, but really to be working much more at the local level. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We can open up to questions. Maybe on the kickoff. I think I've got some. So, guys.
Hi.
Okay,
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation, especially coming from Mexico as well. It's really nice to see someone speaking about our country, because it's not very usual in this part of the world to talk about North America, because that's another thing that many people, they think that Mexico is South America, which is geopolitically not true. So it's really nice to see this work here in this part of the world. But I was going to ask you if you can explain further this entity that we have in Mexico that is very peculiar to Mexico, the ejido and the communal land, because that maybe will explain better why it's necessary to take decisions at a local level, and why it's very specific to each region in Mexico, because how they need to organize themselves as ejidatarios or as a communal landowners.
I go one by one? Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you very much for this question. Yeah, it's a very peculiar land arrangement in Mexico because of we have a revolution in 1910. So after the Mexican Revolution, because it was a peasant revolution asking and demanding for land, they decided to, yes, proceed into a reform, land reform. This land reform took a lot of time. It was not immediate, as we could have imagined that in 1917 already, were a lot of land distributed. On the contrary, it was very, very slow because it was against the interest of very big and powerful agrarian elites, But finally, when we have some decades, in the 30s, we have a lot of land distribution, in the 50s and 70s, but there was, on the contrary of the rest of Latin America, a land distribution. And the figure, the agrarian figure that was issued from this Mexican Revolution was the ejido. And we call it ejido to a part of land that it was fought by the peasants and was attributed by the national government in their use. You can use it, you cannot sell it, but you can use it. It is an usufruct of this land. So then that is the way the peasants and indigenous populations acquired or could have access to the land. Now, what it happened now, it was in 1992, there was another land reform, that it was what we call it the counter-reform, because now it was the privatization of that land. In this sense, there was a program of certification of land, and this was to give security to the landowners. But what had on the contrary, it is that before, the assembly of the community were the ones that they were deciding like the big issues of the land, problems of each community. And nowadays, these assemblies, these community assemblies have lost a lot of power, because each ejidatario, each person that is owning the part of the ejido, can decide to sell their land or to lease their land without the permission or without the authorization of the assembly, no? So now it has become really, in a risky situation, no? That before it was always controlled by the community, their lands. And now with this reform of 1992 and the declaration of the end of the land reform, then it has become really problematic, no? So now, for example, mining companies can come and say, okay, I buy you your land, and then 4 persons can decide for the community, no? Because they are their lands, and then are issues, political issues that are much more complicated. But in that sense, it is no the way of now a very risky situation. But what it is important then, it was that for many years, no, the ejidos had like a stability in the sense of having their land rights as a community, no? Even though there were problems with the land reform institutions and there were, but more or less, no, we could say grosso, that they were having, no, the usufruct, the use of the land, and they could decide upon their land, not selling it, but cultivating on their lands. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very insightful, and I think you gave a very clear context of all the pressures that local communities and indigenous peoples are suffering in Mexico, because they are on many fronts. So I'm wondering, like on the environmental side, like also you touch a little bit about the impact of international organizations in the decision process within the community. So what is your thought about now, since the government has been reducing the investment in environmental, like we had very good programs in Mexico, the National Forestry Commission, they had like very amazing forestry programs to support that empowerment of the communities, but then it has been reducing, and who is taking control or who is taking advantage of that are international organizations. So we'll see more and more in recent years, like international organizations come in with money, but that doesn't get to the ground. So it gets just at the administration level, but it doesn't really get, so that now there is like a lot of social conflicts within communities, because there is like this power dynamics of with whom you will work, and if you don't work with me. So there is like a lot of coercion also, like in collaboration, mainly with the National Protected Areas Commissions, with these international organizations. So what are your thoughts on that sense? So what we can do as an academic sector to change what is happening or to influence what is happening, because we see more and more like appropriation of local projects and local initiatives, but these international organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you touch a very neurologic point, no, in conservation and what is the future of forests, no, and rainforest in Mexico. I think it's a catastrophic situation, no, with the new government in that sense, that has been reduced, as you say, no, all the programs that were supposedly, no, very impulsing and fostering all the programs of conservation of forest and rainforest, no. So what I think it is that for an academic, I think that we have to fight against that, no, and to really be very much in the front, if not accusing, but putting in the air, no, what is happening in the environmental issues and the conservation, and that what it means for the appropriation of forests, no, because afterwards, if no, all the big international corporations or the bingos, no, will be controlling that land via, no, carbon bonds or a red plus or whatever, no, then what we commit is that even less and less power, no, the ejidatarios or the community holders, no, will be having for their lands, to defend their lands and their wishes, no, in the sense of what parts to be conserved and which parts to be worked and which parts. There is no like decisions in their own frame, no. So it is like to be putting this in the discussion, no.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll go to the back in a minute.
Hi, thank you very much for the talk. Really impressive work. And you touch upon something that I'm very, very interested on is kind of this interaction between the communities, the land they have, but also the impact of the drug cartels. So for instance, I know there is a lot of a tremendous impact on the production of avocado, much of which actually comes to Europe and to the UK, but also lemon, which is a really precious product, not only in Europe, but also in the US, for instance. But I haven't seen much about how this impact is being quantified. To what extent do we know how much these drug cartels actually dominate this production? So I know from family that I have around Michoacán and Guerrero, some of the states, they know which drug cartels dominate and ask them for money actually to be able to actually work their own land. So do we have any mechanism now in place, any quantification actually that we can use to actually know who is dominating what and how much money is being moved around and dominated by these cartels?
Mhm. No, we don't have that information. We have the information that no, the avocado is controlled by the narco cartels and only by interviews. No, when we have been interviewing big producers of avocado, what they have been always telling us it is, well, I prefer to pay to the narco cartel than to the police, because at least I know that my product will arrive to the US. No? And even they have very sophisticated ways, no, to introduce the avocado in the US, no, with holograms, and you know they have documents and papers that the narco cartel is given to the producer. The producer is no taking it into, well, the truck driver will be taking this authorization of the narco cartel, and they will be showing it, and they will be showing it into the border. So when they say, why the US? The US is implicated in that. And they know, of course, that that it's a product that it's no surveyed or controlled by the narco cartels. No? And there are huge amounts of tons that comes that go from avocado, for example, but also the berries, no, and it's also in Michoacán, no, that also they are controlled by the narco cartels. And as I said, no, su carne, it is controlled, and the cattle that is coming illegally, no, from Central America, also they are controlled by the narco cartels, and this is known. Everybody talks about it, but in your house and not in publicly, because yeah, you put your life in danger. No, so I think that no, there are no quantifications. I don't know anything about it, but through the interviews you see that it is a very complicated and complex way of how the cartels are dealing with this. No, and that is why, well, the control of the areas and of the products, no, of lemon, of avocado, are in war, no, because they mean, yeah, huge amounts of money, no. But no, I don't know. There are a lot of studies that have been saying the berries, the avocados, the cattle, no, but not in a quantification way. No, I don't think that even, for example, su carne, it's very highly protected by the government, no, by the national and by the state of Sinaloa. They are giving prizes, for example, no, big national prizes, because they have been the greatest exporters of cattle. And you say, how can they have a prize, national prize? No, then of course the national authorities, they know about it, because it's impossible that they have been growing so quickly, no, in that, and that they are having these feedlots in Michoacán, for example. They have a huge feedlot that I don't dare to go there even, no, because I'm scared about it. But then you say, how can they survive there if they don't deal with the narco cartels? So for sure they are dealing with them, no.
Thank you very much. Yeah, echoing everyone else. I just wondered if we could take a step back slightly, and building off the comment about ejidos before. I've been doing some reading a little bit about how Canada have been changing their Indigenous land recognition system. And I just wondered if you could give us a broad strokes framework, I guess, to understand how land tenure systems change? Is it always a legislative change? I mean, we've mentioned revolution. Is there an easy way to understand how it's happened around the globe and through history, or is it too complicated?
I think that we have to understand it contextually, no, region by region, country by country. Because, for example, what is happening in Mozambique, that there's a lot of land grabbing and a lot of Indian companies, land companies that are buying land in Mozambique. It is incredible. Or Brazilians, even big cattle raisers, Brazilian cattle raisers are buying land in Mozambique to say why, how, and how it is happening, no? So I think that what we have to analyze always the land tenure is context by context, no? Because also, for example, the pastoralism, no, where pastoralists are living and all the uncertainty of their land rights, no? Now they are in Cambodia, for example, that they are very, very much, grabbed, no, their land because, of course, they had extensive land, and then they cannot prove that it's their land, no? And then easily they can say, no, this is your land and not all of this, no? That is what happened very much in Mexico before, because when you had it, all the rainforest, and it's not only Mexico or Latin America, it was worldwide. Forests were considered unproductive spaces, no? They were there without being produced. It's anti-progress, no? What we have to do it is to come into the progress and change all this forest into productive lands. And then there were transformations. But there was also a law that was also around 1920s, no? For example, in Mexico, that obliged the ejidatarios that if you are working your land, you have to prove that you have been working your land. And the way to prove it is to be cutting all the forests, and I'm working my land, because if not, I will be in risk that the agrarian reform will take away my land because I'm not working it, no? So that is why there was a joke among biologists. They said, oh, I prefer that people will be very lazy, or that they will be drunk, because that's the way that rainforest can be conserved, no? Because there was this law that it was really not pressuring the peasants to be proving that they are working their land by converting or transforming all the rainforest into productive lands, no? So I think that the case of Mexico is special because of the ejido, but also it is very different in different parts, no? For example, in this part of Sinaloa in the northwest, that there are very big maize producers, no? But also horticultural producers that are producing very much for the US market, the horticultural products. They are leasing land. What they are always saying it is, no, I am not interested in buying land, because there are a lot of always problems of invasions. There are problems of that I will be, as I need a high yield and I'm using a lot of agrochemicals, I don't care, it's not my land. After 10 years that it's not usable, then I turn to another land. So they are leasing and leasing a lot, but complete ejidos, no? And it is this, for example, we have very little data about it. And only when you go and said, oh, how much land it's leased here? Oh, don't the ejido, it's leased. How come? To this person? Yeah, okay. No? So then, but that doesn't happen in the south of Mexico, no? That happens very much in the northwest of Mexico, no? So then you have a lot of patchworks and differences about land tenure and land rights, no? And also the recognition of indigenous population, no? I was thinking also in Cambodia or in Laos, no? Where they are not even recognized indigenous people, so they don't have the right to have lands because they are not recognized as indigenous populations, no?
So this is a bit of a, I guess, speculative question, but given all these issues that you've told us about land tenures and all that in Mexico, if you, for example, were the president of Mexico tomorrow, how would you try and reform the land tenure system and sort of trade agreements and all of that to try and fix these issues?
Yeah, it's a nice question. Yeah, better to dream than not to dream, no? Well, first of all, I will return that yes, the community assemblies will be having the decision, no, that they will be really making the decision institution of, of your territory has to be the community, not one by one, as it was before, for example, in the ejido system, no? And also in the communal land holdings, no? So in that sense, it is to give back, no, the power to the assembly. And even though it doesn't means that that will solve the problems, no, because also there are a lot of contradictions and power relations and manipulation. Of course, all these things, we know it, but at least, no, there is more opportunities that the local people will be deciding over their own territory, and not that other ones or the companies will be deciding over their territory. That is one thing. And the other thing, it will be, what you were saying about the forest legislation, no? That nowadays it is very, very little budget to all the conservation programs and to the forest management programs and to the community forest management programs. There is really very, very little budget and little interest, no? It's, well, the environmental thing, it is at the least of the important things, no? So then, and it is with this mind of progress and still, no, transforming all the forest and to make progress the nation, no. So that has to be stopped, no, and that has to be reverted, and to say, well, how can we really find other alternatives? And I think that there are alternatives. There are organizations, very strong indigenous organizations in Mexico that have been saying no to the mining, no to this, no to that, no to the monocultures. We will be keeping these, but they are the fewest. No, they are not so much, because it needs a lot. They are 40, 50 years that they have been organized, and they are trying to. But even the Zapatista movement in Chiapas, no, now they are crossed by the narco cartels, no, and they were having a lot of success in the coffee production. They were having success in what they thought that they were the principles of food justice and of territorial justice, but now they are crossed by violence, by the police, by the narco cartels, by everybody, no? So then it is a very difficult situation, for example, for the Zapatistas, no?
Okay, there's an online question that I'll read to you. This is from Natalia, and she asks, trade has been driving many of the changes in national policy, as you showed. Countries like Colombia are net exporters, but also far from food sovereignty. So current policies such as bioeconomy seek to increase the share natural resources have on GDP, which risks the exacerbation of these trends. How do you think we can approach these challenges?
Mm-hmm.
Would a bioeconomy make us more vulnerable?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think first to be working on the land rights and to be working on the local institutions to give possibilities that the local communities will be deciding over their own territories. But if we don't work in these institutional arrangements, the local institutional arrangements, we are not going to advance in saying no to Nestlé, no? Because of course with Nestlé, and they are promising that they will buy your product, even though you change everything, but you are saying, yes, I will do it, because if not, I won't have another market, no? And if I don't have security for another market, I will be doing what Nestlé does. But that is because also they are not well organized, that the peasants are not well organized, that they are individually answering to what Nestlé is deciding. And then of course Nestlé knows about it, and of course for Nestlé it's not well that they are well organized, as for example this big organization that I was telling you in Puebla, in Quetzalan, that they are very well organized. They are coffee producers, and they can say to Nestlé, no, we don't want you. No, we have another market, we don't want you. But that is because they are very well organized. But in all the places where peasants and indigenous people are not organized, then it is very easily that the transnationals and the corporations will be dealing with individuals, and then it will be very easy for them to control their lands and their products and their prices and their markets. That is what I could say about it.
Any more questions? No?
Short arms. Okay, thank you so much for being here and for this. So Yadvinder mentioned your work with IPBES, and I know today we've been talking a lot about the key role of devolving power to local communities. So I'm wondering what your experience with IPBES has been like, and what you think the relationship between something like a global level assessment or global governance is with something like devolving power and empowering local communities, if there is a relationship.
Yeah, excellent question. It has been a question that has been very much discussed in IPBES, no? And what we had it was like workshops with indigenous people and with local communities to understand really how they were dealing with biodiversity conservation, with the values that they were giving, no? And certainly they were accusing, all these big, global decisions over their own territories, So you have also, for example, in Lapland, in Finland and Sweden, they are very well organized, and there are very young women that they have a lot of force. And then they come to IPBES and they say, no, you have to write this and this and this. And if not, we are not going to accept it, and our government is not going to accept it, Also the Bolivian, we have a lot of problems with the Bolivians in the sense of, well, we have to pass the document, and in the plenary, the Bolivian was saying, no, until you write Mother Earth, until you write Pachamama, until you write that it's a cosmological also vision, and it's not only this relation to nature as a commodity, So it was very strong. And for example, the Argentinian, that they have no indigenous populations, they were against it. And then how to deal with this negotiation, Because the Argentinians said, no, if you write that, I don't sign. And the Bolivians said, if you don't write that, I don't sign. So what do we do? So it was a process of very much negotiation. And at the end, of course, it is softer of what I was really, very much with a Bolivian person. I was saying, I agree with you, but we cannot write it the way you want it, because the Argentinian, the Ukrainian guy, they don't want it like that, written like that. Germany didn't want to write it like that, So then it is like to make, negotiations. And then afterwards, the document, we could say it is a softer document, and it doesn't have the force that indigenous people would like to have. But on the other side, what they say is, well, it is better than nothing. And at least, we are considering in all these discussions, we are considered as having other perspectives, and that was good. And to bring into the values assessment their own values and how they value nature. And to bring it into this assessment, it was important for them, even though it was not the way they would have liked that was the result,
Okay, no more questions. Thank you once again for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have drinks, which room?
Atmosphere rooms just down there to the left and follow it.
Okay, just come to have an informal conversation with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone online as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, sometimes my English,
Okay,
not,
fine.
no, sometimes I think, oh, I should have said this.